Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, and joining me here to my side, my good colleague and pal, Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, how's it going, my friend?
I just want to say thank you to the individual who figured out it was Derek Tuska.
Oh man, I mean that was a deep dive. I forgot about Derek Tuska myself.
Yes.
Yeah, that was that was something. Yeah, kudos for sure, because that was a name that escaped me. You know, it goes back to, you know, a lot of the things that are going on right now with the preseason and getting. Yeah, you have some of your favorites, your hopefuls, guys that you would like to see pan out a little more. I mean, we beat around the bush on that whole thing. We even came up with Anthony Chickalo, who I'd long forgotten about. There's some names that just have not surfaced for a long time. I had a pretty cool article over on the website the other day, Brian, about just like some maybe underrated, underappreciated, not talked about players, overlooked players on the Steelers roster too. And I was talking about guys like Dean Lowry. I think he may come up in our last conversation, but somebody else like mentioned when I did the solo show, I didn't talk about Dean Lowry at all. And I'm like, yeah, you got a 30-year-old dude that's an 8-year NFL veteran. He has played in 120 games, 84 starts. Don't talk about him whatsoever. I'm like, isn't that kind of weird? I mean, it just is. And I'm like, I don't know that he's going to make the roster, but if they keep enough defensive linemen in the way they kept guys like Wendell Smallwood, for example. He never got to see the field, but there were guys now that you could put on the practice squad or stash in case of emergency. Maybe Lowry's like one of those guys, and we're going to hammer around and see some of the strengths and concerns of different position groups. But he was one of the players. Julius Welshoff, who got to play a lot because Peyton Wilson got the concussion. He's been playing a lot. He's played the most snaps in the preseason of anybody on the entire roster, any side of the football. And this dude is what? 6'6", 265 as an inside linebacker. He's an international pathway player, of which we haven't mentioned at all. He's the 91st spot of a 90-man roster, so they use that. He's a freak of nature. I mean, but is he going to make the roster? I don't know. Might as well mention the other two while I'm at it. Jack Coletto, who we have mentioned. Arthur Smith wanting to do some jumbo sets, I formation, fullback. Will he be the guy? He was with the San Francisco 49ers in their camp and just for a short spell last year. So just minimal NFL experience. He's not quite rookie, but still kind of a rookie in ways. And then one other one, Ryan Watts, who was the 6th round pick this year. Defensive back. We're thinking safety, but he's kind of like that dimebacker role, special teams player. I've been impressed with him. From what I've seen, particularly special teams, he's done decent against the same level of competition throughout the preseason. So these are the kind of guys that are filling out the bottom of the roster or maybe practice squad that may become contributors, but we also have some other areas of concern heading into this show. So I'm going to let you pick which group we should start with, because there are some we can talk about till the cows come home, and then there's some that we don't have a whole lot to say about.
Well, let's just bite into the deep meat, quarterback.
Well, that is the deep meat. How concerned?
That sounds terrible. I want to rephrase that. Let's just bite into the big apple.
The white apple. I don't know, the deep meat or the.
Oh, that's dirty sounding. I don't like it.
The juicy meat. The meat there's sizzle to that steak, Brian.
Something is any word that you put in front of meat and say you're going to bite into it without actually having a big steak in front of you doesn't sound good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my friend, quarterbacks. What after that preseason game, does that preseason, number one, I asked this question. This was the topic of the last show. Are people overreacting over the quarterback situation based on that preseason game against the Bills? I say yes. I say it's a huge overreaction.
I will tell you this, as you said this because I watched at least the first half of the last episode. You mentioned that we have consistently said, "Fool me once, Shame on me, fooled me twice with the whole preseason concept, right? They were amazing last year, and we were like, oh my God, they're going to win 16, 17 games. They're so great. They stink this year. That doesn't mean that they're going to stink when the season rolls around. Is there a reason for concern? Yeah, sure. We should be concerned and worried to a minimal. Like, we should be like, I don't like what I'm seeing. But I don't think we have to be overreacting, going, the sky is falling, it's the end. We won't know until the real games start.
Absolutely. I like the way Russell Wilson handles these pressers and stuff. He said there's no worries. People were asking about, we'll talk about offensive line here. Maybe we'll do that next. Broderick Jones, had a bad day in the office for sure, but Wilson says he's one of the reasons I came here, of course, because when he was in Seattle, he didn't have an offensive line. He was lobbying the GM. He was trying to, rumors that he tried to get that GM fired. We talked about all the diva stuff with Russell Wilson, and he's been anything but right now. It seems like he's been trying to clean up his image, But, we talked about these guys, both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, taking forever to throw the football. They're among the longest in the NFL to do it. Last year, Justin Fields had the most time of any quarterback to get rid of the ball. So his line was doing an okay job. Whether everybody else was is a whole other story. And now in the preseason, he's had an ample amount of time too. I believe somebody else had that statistic, like a Pro Football Focus or whatever. Guys just got to get rid of the ball. Some of that might be the growing pains of a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive system across the whole board. We saw Kelvin Austin have a false start. Maybe the cadence isn't there, et cetera, et cetera. But we also saw a very close play that could become commonplace down the field to George Pickens. You have that one play and it counts. His toes in like an extra inch or so, and it's inbounds and touches green. We're not having maybe the same conversation. Maybe they go down to the red zone and score, which was also a failure these last few weeks, no matter who was the quarterback. Kyle Allen overthrowing Austin once again. Those, those kind of things. So I'm not like, let's put it this way. This game against the Lions, 1:00 in Detroit, we're not going to have any more to like observe, at least probably with, I don't know that they haven't said, but I don't think we're going to see Russell Wilson. We might not see a whole lot of even Justin Fields for that matter. Maybe they might give him a half, give him some more development. He needs to carve these people up. Like, people keep thinking that this is like a competition. And it's like, Wilson's going to be the week 1 starter. If Tomlin had Mitch Trubisky as his week 1 guy over Kenny Pickett, then there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You know what I mean? And it hasn't been a competition really.
No, it's not a competition. It was never going to be a competition. We knew that from the beginning. The only people who thought realistically it was going to be a competition are people who just wanted to stir up talk. We knew it was going to be this way. I think, as I said last time around, I think the Steelers are thrilled that they got a chance to see Justin Fields, to get a sense of Justin Fields in certain scenarios. I don't know that they're thrilled with what they saw, but I'm 100% certain they're thrilled with how this preseason has played out. We'll know when we get into the first real game. We're not, third preseason game, we already know we're not seeing a lot of anything, right? No. You can't, this is the guys who are trying to find out, am I bagging groceries next week, or am I, playing? Am I on the practice squad? Or am I previewing myself for another team, to somebody to pick me up? You're going to see the bottom group of guys on the roster trying to make their case for their spot. We might, because this is a little bit of a different offseason for the Steelers, we might see some first string reps, not with Russell, but with Justin, initially in the first quarter. But, you get past the first quarter, you're just going to see other stuff.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not overly concerned. I think the first few games, when it comes to Russell Wilson, I think it's still going to be a feeling out period all the way around. It's always ugly. It's always an extension of the preseason, because you're not going to put TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith out there and risk them getting hurt. We know what the record for the Steelers is without Watt. You're not going to put a guy you're paying $30 million a year for out there and risk him getting injured. And I think there's similar concerns maybe with do it too much with Russ. And of course, Russ, I think, had some rust. There's some jitters. You had some of the offensive linemen in different spots are playing all together for the first time, really, too, because I think Sam Malo and Daniels both didn't play that first preseason game. So a lot of those things they're going to work themselves out. If they give these guys enough time. People are talking about, well, Russell Wilson isn't as elusive as he once was. Well, that might be true at 35 years of age, but it doesn't mean he's not elusive whatsoever. And my problem with Fields, and the only concern with Fields, is you see him like the play to Des Fitzpatrick, for example. Like you could see it. You could see flashes. There was a time when Kenny Pickett used to anticipate, and then he started to get away from that. He got too much happy feet. And I see Fields a lot of times. He's got to stand in the pocket and make the reads. And sometimes he doesn't come back to the reads, or he stares down some of them a little too long. There's still things that I think are coachable for Fields. So no, I'm not concerned. He's just a backup. Those things could probably still get cleaned up, maybe hopefully get cleaned up. And you do have an alternative, at least, if Russell Wilson is no good. You know what I mean? So, and the other thing is, the biggest takeaway from this is, as far as concerned, and nobody wants to hear this because we wait all year long for NFL season, but the Steelers aren't tied to either one of these guys beyond this season.
They're not.
No. So, you know what I mean? If it sucks, then you wipe the slate clean. This isn't like a Cleveland Browns situation where they have like a $66 million a year cap hit for the next 3 years with Deshaun Watson, and they can't get rid of it because it's all guaranteed money. You are hitched to that guy for 3 years. And some of these other teams, like the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, the Dolphins with Tua, even the Bengals with Joe Burrow, for that matter, he's got to stay healthy. At least you have a little bit of insight that this guy was a dude in college and he got these guys to the AFC Championship game twice in a Super Bowl appearance. At least you got that to hang your hat on. Can he do it again? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? We'll talk about AFC North teams later, but quarterback, mildly concerning. We're looking for, I was thinking about this morning working out. Okay. We are beyond the days of Ben Roethlisberger. He could extend plays. He did some stuff that was backyard football and on the run. Will you see that from Russ? Sure. Will you see that from Justin? Sure. But Ben was Big Ben for a reason. That dude, it was like seeing Bettis leave, and we didn't know how to appreciate how people it looked like his uniform was made out of rubber, and defenders just bounced off of him. The same thing with Big Ben. Those days are long gone with any other quarterback that comes around, unless you get somebody that's like another Big Ben, and they don't exist. They don't exist. How many guys in NFL history can you say were as elusive as Ben Roethlisberger? I mean, you got Lamar Jackson, but he's a different kind of elusive.
Yeah, I was going to say, use a different term. Elusive. Just say hard to bring down.
Yeah.
Because Ben wasn't terribly elusive, right? In the sense that he would sometimes, as you said, people would bounce off of him. He was just hard as hell to get on the ground.
Yeah. I agree. Hey, let's jump to offensive line, since that's a big component of the quarterbacks, right? How concerned are you about, let's start with Zach Frazier.
Let me say this overall. I said this early on. We have a brand new offensive line. They need to work together. They need to gel together. You got 2 rookies and a guy who may be a second-year guy on the line. That's 3 out of your 5 guys who are young. That's great in the sense that they can grow together, but the first 3 games might be hideously ugly until they start to get that synchronicity. Am I concerned about Zach Frazier? No. I'm more concerned that we don't really have anything behind Zach Frazier now, a lot, but am I concerned about Zach? No, not.
I know, and it was bothering me some that they were calling, if you're not familiar now, Nate Herbig officially on IR, but you got guys like Ian Rappaport saying projected starter. It's like, come on, guys. He was not going to be the starter. He was already losing ground to Zach Frazier at this point, which I got to point this out. I had to pull it up for you, Brian, but when we like him, they'll support our cause. Pro Football Focus, Zach Frazier this preseason, 80.7 pass blocking snaps, 42 pass blocking. That's his rating. 42 pass blocking snaps and 0 pressures allowed. He's doing pretty damn good, and he gets second.
I gotta go take a shower. I know what you said. We'll use them when we when we like what they say, but now I feel dirty and I have to go take a shower.
I'm being down in Southern Ohio. I caught like this local car dealer ad down in Cincinnati. I was down in Cincinnati area over the weekend, and Chris Collinsworthless was in one of the ads, and I'm like, who in their right mind thinks that's going to sell you more cars? I know he's like probably like one of the more named Bengals guys of all time, but he owns Pro Football Focus, so that's the tie-in here, folks. But Zach Frazier, Zach Frazier is great. And I should say strength or concern. Right now, the concern is pass blocking, right? Run blocking looks pretty darn good with these guys when you have Frazier getting second level, Seumalo, James Daniels. Now you go to the tackles. How concerned are we at the tackle positions of Dan Moore, Broderick Jones, and Troy Fautanu? A little concerned, I think.
I'm nervous.
There you go.
But I'm not. I don't know that I'm concerned. I'm like the shelter dog that looks at people and like, I'm not sure about you, but at the same time really would like a pet. Please come give me a treat and a pet. I want them to be good, right? I think that eventually they will be. But right now, I think the greatest area of risk probably is on those edges.
Yep, and with Fautanu not getting that time, he's not going to be on the field right now, and that means Dan Moore is going to be the left tackle. They're not going to play him on the right. Yeah. How much does that screw at Broderick? Broderick was good on the right side last year. He was adequate enough. I'm not as concerned. And like I said, there were other things that factored into that game. Weather delayed, no warm-ups, just going out there kind of cold. First series especially. Things of that nature that could happen in a regular season, but I doubt it will. Just another little side note about the quarterbacks. The Steelers and the Patriots are the only two teams have yet, as of right now as we're talking, have not officially named a week one starting quarterback, which I do find odd. That kind of leads to the speculation of a quarterback battle. But again, we all assume it's just Wilson. We know that Mike Tomlin, he keeps that stuff in his back pocket all the time. So I wouldn't read too much into it right now.
Agreed.
Okay. But the tackles, concerned, probably nervous. I like the shelter dog analogy. That's pretty good. We're just hoping that Fautanu can play on the right side and be a right tackle. If not, does that mean Jones? We know Jones can play both, presumably. So maybe that won't be an issue if they do have to put Fautanu back on the other side. But Jones was drafted last year and moved up to get him in order to play on the left. I don't think Jones should be in any bust conversations or anything of the like. I think that's just silly talk right now, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Speaking on the rest of the Steelers offense at this time, too, tight ends and running backs. I think the only concern that we might have, Brian, is Jaylen Warren tweaked his hammy. That's about it. I don't have concerns at either of those two positions, to be completely honest. Najee Harris. We haven't really seen a lot out of Cordero Patterson, but I'm not really worried about him. He's here to be a kick returner. And then you have Pat Freiermuth. You have Darnell Washington. Washington was looking a little sluggish in pass blocking, too, the other day. He had his moments. There was one where they ran the football. They got behind. I think he was over on the right side, and they got behind like Jones. And I'm trying to think who was on that side. It might have been Mason McCormick at that point, or it might have been Daniels. I don't recall. But I'm not as worried about those two groups.
No, I'm not. I'm more worried about depth with Jaylen Warren hurting his hamstring than I am about Jaylen Warren or Najee Harris. When he's back, I'm not worried. I'm worried a little bit about depth. I'm not worried about the tight ends. They are who they are.
I had a statistic of why not to worry, too. Through the last several games of the season, last year, the Mason Rudolph era, Steelers getting into the playoffs, Najee Harris ended up getting over 1,000 yards on the season in the last game, playing some backups against the Baltimore Ravens, who had the 1 seed locked up, and they were resting some starters. And let me see. So Harris's both of his 100-yard games came in the final 2 games of last season. He had 122 and 112 yards. That was against the Seahawks, against the Ravens. Over the final 3 games, he had 4 rushing touchdowns, 312 yards, 4.3 yards per attempt, on 72 carries. This is a guy that's never missed a game in his NFL career. He has been playing a 17-game season, which it was established when he first came in. This was with bad quarterbacks. Matt Canada is his offensive coordinator, and also playing with Dan Moore Jr. and also Kendrick Green and some other notables. You go through like a 12-pack of soda or pop. We need to call it pop because that's what we do.
It's Polar Seltzer.
I swear, I hear it go. Tss, it's over there. It's not as quiet as a church mouse, let me tell you. But anyways,
it is not.
I have no concerns about Najee Harris having to carry the load the full way. Even when he was a little bit dinged up, he seems to get better as the season goes on too. And I think that Arthur Smith is going to just he's going to hammer the rock. He's going to run the football. I think that's going to be the identity of this team. We just haven't seen enough of it. And I think the offensive line is probably going to be better as road pavers as opposed to even pass protection. So if you're not relying on Justin or Russ to throw the ball 45, 50 times, I think
if we are relying on that, we're in deep doo-doo.
We are. Wide receivers are the guys that got to throw it to. Not concerned about George Pickens whatsoever. How about everybody else? I am concerned.
Yes, I'm concerned about everybody else.
Who specifically? Because Roman Wilson, I'm concerned, isn't going to get on the field for quite some time. I just think that's not going to happen. Now, Van Jefferson, I think, is going to be a pleasant surprise. He's not going to put up Antonio Brown, Martavis Bryant, Juju Smith-Schuster type numbers. Speaking of which, that name coming up, would you take Juju back? What would he add to this team? Somebody said he has bad knees. That was the number one thing.
Can he pass a physical? If he can pass a physical, would I take him back? I don't know. It's not even fair to say he knows the system anymore, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I like Juju, but he is one of many in a long line of receivers who left here and basically did nothing. Mm-hmm. So, if he comes back, is he gonna suddenly do something again? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't think it improves anything. Let's put it that way. You add Juju to the team, I don't think you've suddenly gone, we fixed the problem. Juju is the savior. No, that's not the case.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. He just adds experience. He adds a guy that can maybe move the chains. I mean, he's a little versatile. He's older now, and he really hasn't stuck anywhere that he's been. And we're also talking about getting released and the Patriots eating some money in the process with probably the worst wide receiver room in football, or one of the worst wide receiver rooms in football. Name somebody else in that room right now. You know what I mean? So that's not a great sign, and it didn't seem like anybody else was really sniffing around. I don't know that I put him out there with no camp now ahead of somebody like a Van Jefferson, risk cutting like a Scotty Miller, who seems to get open and have a little bit of rapport and could do some things. If they have to throw Scotty Miller out there ahead of, like, let's say Calvin Austin just doesn't get the job done, or Roman Wilson can't get out there, I think Scotty Miller, provided he makes this team, will be okay. I think they got to get somebody else. Where I was looking at special teams, I was looking at the punt coverage. Johnston can like boom these kicks. They got to get somebody out there that can like play gunner and just get downfield that's fast. And that was like a Miles Boykin or something. So yeah. I don't know that they're done adding to this wide receiver room. And Boykin had some size too. Somebody's going to tackle. Scotty Miller's not going to do it against some of these guys, And they did have him back for one of the punt returns, I think, the other day. So they're kind of trialing him in that area too and seeing if he could be like a return guy, but I still think they need somebody that can cover. I don't think they're done with that room. Is it going to be a Brandon Ayuk? I'm so tired of hearing about it. That dude, I don't think is leaving San Francisco. He's a long line of guys that cry about their contract and want to stay in their current situation but make more money. That's what it boils down to. He's trying to use other teams for leverage. I don't think John Lynch, the GM of the 49ers, is interested in getting rid of him. I don't think Kyle Shanahan's interested in getting rid of him. I know they drafted Ricky Pearsall, who's now was dinged up. Another rookie that's in a similar situation of like a Roman Wilson. They're not going to be able to just throw him on the field and be able to replace Ayuk. So I don't think Ayuk's on the table. Somebody else might be like a roster casualty somewhere else around the league before you see any movement on any of that. But I don't know that movement's going to be to Pittsburgh, and I don't think he's the savior for this wide receiver core either. I think George Pickens is the savior, and I think we see somebody else probably overachieve from what we're expecting right now, whether that be Jefferson or Austin, and that overachieving doesn't have to be a whole lot. They're going to run the football. Jaylen Warren, I think, had the second most receptions on this team last year. He's going to be involved, especially when you're talking about Wilson or Fields. They hold on to the ball too long. Maybe they don't make the reads. They're going to look for that check down. That also means Pat Freiermuth. So those type of things help me rest a little easier at night when I go to sleep, instead of thinking, wow, they need like 2 dudes that could be wide receiver ones. I'm cooling my heels on that, especially 28 to 30 million a year.
Yep, I'm with you 100%.
Mm-hmm. Jump to defense. Defensive line. Any concerns whatsoever?
I mean, generally speaking, no. But there's like this hint of a concern subtextually, right? There's this hint of, yeah, we got a couple old dudes there, and what happens if this is, as last year Cam got hurt, Larry's always hurt but always plays. What happens if this is the year that degrades a little bit? I don't know. Am I concerned? No. But there's like this thing in the back of the head that's like going, what about this?
That preseason game, the defensive lines on both sides were giving everybody hell. They were probably making all the offensive linemen throw fits for the Bills and the Steelers, because Ogunjobi was having a good game. Benton was getting back there. We saw DeMarvin Leal, I think, is really turning a corner now too. Yep. Isaiah Loudermilk's kind of on the lower end of this. We mentioned Dean Lowry being the veteran that he is, but he's there if there's depth, or they need they keep 7 guys, because when I did this 53-man exercise, I'm trying to find somewhere to put John Reese Plumlee, J.R. Plumlee. Because I think he's like a slash. He's an athlete. He's somebody. But does he make the 53? Probably still a long shot, unless he's going to be a straight up kick returner or something of that nature. They're throwing him passes. They have him running the ball. Jack Colletto's kind of doing the same thing as a fullback. So there's a few lower roster spots that are still TBD, right?
Mm-hmm.
Overall, though, I don't mind the depth that they've got here. You never want to see somebody
I agree.
Yeah, I think Cam will still be more. Well, Cam will not play at the level he did last year. I don't think.
I think that's for sure.
The previous 2 years with double-digit sacks, does he return to that level? 35-year-old guy.
Somewhere in between, probably.
Yeah, somewhere in between, which is still going to be better than a lot of the guys that are out there in the National Football League. So that's where I'm at with the defensive lineman. I'm trying to think if I missed somebody here. Let me take a look real quick. Depth chart: Ogunjobi, Benton, Hayward, Lowry. Oh, Montrevious Adams. He's pretty solid too. I think he seems to get better and better and better and better. I think. Like I'm still decently impressed with him for being a guy that was poached to fill a spot after they took him off the Saints practice squad a couple of years ago. So
he's kind of like a shelter dog.
He'd go to the well. How many times are you going to go to the well before we take you out back of the shed?
I'm gonna say it at least four more times in this episode. Maybe not.
That works well. Folks, Brian Eduardo Roach. He'll be here all week. Don't forget to try the veal.
That's not my name.
I've called you something like that on the last show, but you didn't listen.
Eduardo is what you did call me. Yes,
Eduardo. We'll find another one maybe. I used Ebenezer. So we'll keep going. Landon would be a good one. That begins with an E.
I would be proud to be Brian Landon. It made me sound. I sound like I'm from Lord of the Rings.
You do, Brian Landon Roach of Middle Earth. It sounds very, very, very regal. It sounds. Yes. I like it. Patrick Queen is a regal name too. Or linebackers. Landon Roberts. Oh, what do we got here? What do you got? What is that? The box. Oh, a bobblehead. Nice. So promoting product that we're not even promoting. That's hey, that's okay.
It's sold out anyway. You can't get it anyway, so who cares?
That was one of the Foco limited editions, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Foco always does some good stuff. They've been good friends over the years. I'm somewhere back here on the set. No longer have Kenny, but I do have the Franco sitting there, the Franco Harris commemorative one. So that's a little somber because when that one came, that was like he had just passed, and it was like within that same like week, and I was so excited to get it, and it was like, man, I look at it, and it was just like a reminder, and that sucks. I wish he would have lived to see his day in the spotlight, but
Yep.
anyways, back on to the we were mentioning a couple of inside linebackers. I don't think this concerns me as much as it did even a year ago. You could never have enough depth here, but I mentioned the German. He's probably so far down the depth chart, he might be a practice squad guy. I think he could even fill in. Patrick Queen flies to the ball. Peyton Wilson, maybe to the detriment of his own health, flies to the ball. You've got Landon Roberts, a thumper, a leader. Cole Holcomb, to be determined. Should he be able to come back, be healthy, and play at the level that he was starting to really find his groove before he got hurt? That's a lot of dudes. And then you still got Tyler Matakevich, who's going to be a special teamer. Mark Robinson, it's probably going to be a special teamer. Mark Robinson has looked good. I mean, he's looked better. I've been happy with his progress in the preseason. I'm not concerned about this group. I mean, if all fails, it's because of like the same situation of last year. You can't prepare for getting 3 or 4 dudes hurt and then having to pull people off the street.
That's the difference Patrick Queen makes, right? Last year, we knew we had Holcomb, we knew we had Landon Roberts, and then we had other guys, right? But we were still like, well, it all depends. We don't know. We'll see what they're like. For the last 3 years, it's always been like, question. Patrick Queen is there now. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, I don't care. We're good.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And that's about where I'll let that one rest, because Queen should be an every down back. Wilson could be an every down back. I was actually debating. They probably won't play with the nose tackle, but I was like, they could almost play like a 3-4. A lot of teams are going to play 3 wide receiver type sets. So you don't ideally want to put Queen on a wide receiver, or you get stuck with Roberts out there. But push comes to shove, capable. You'll see the outside linebacker. I saw Herbig do it the other day, actually, just the same way that TJ does. And man, I am so impressed with Nick Herbig. Is you got to find some more ways to get this dude on the field. He's been doing tremendous. He looks great. I know it's JVs sometimes, and he's JV, but he's playing at a varsity level against these JVs. I'd like to see what he does at a varsity level, and we got to see a little bit of that last season too. But then again, you already got TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Marcus Golden retired. We don't know if Leal would be like that 4th outside linebacker, or if there's somebody else that they would add. That's just the only concern there. Again, is depth. You have anything else?
Didn't they just sign somebody? Didn't they just sign somebody to be an outside linebacker?
Not anybody of consequence.
I know, but I mean, it's like that point in time where we're just at the point where they're like signing people, and they're going to be around probably, unless they can find somebody else. I'm still concerned about the outside linebacker depth at this point, but I'm not concerned about the top 3.
Linebacker Kaivaza Tizino. I don't know how to say the dude's first name. Kyahva. Kayava Tizino, I think, is maybe the pronunciation for that. That is one where
this is another guy that I'm going to go. Remember when we had that guy?
No, you won't. I don't even know that some of these guys, to be honest, they're filling spots on the roster right now. They may not even be in this preseason game, and then they're going to be gone as fast as they were here. Marcus Haynes, a defensive lineman, as we go into the DBs and the corners, kind of called this one. Anthony Everett, gone. He had his chance that first preseason game and completely blew it. I think Corey Trice has played well enough that he's going to be the 3rd, the next guy off the bench behind Dante Jackson, Joey Porter Jr., and then, of course, Darius Rush. It hasn't been bad. You could complain where you may want, but then you're just kind of the old man yelling at clouds in some of these preseason games. Rush, put it this way, no worse than James Pierre. You're looking at something like that. So Everett, we kind of were talking about that. There might be somebody else that comes along. I think we're morally concerned about probably the biggest concern anywhere else on the roster. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if you have a different thought, Brian, but nickel corner, the guy that's going to cover in the slot.
Yeah, because you thought it was going to be fixed, and it's not.
Mm-mm.
I think that is probably the number one issue that there is.
Yeah, definitely the number one issue. They could still see. I still see him, Omar Khan, adding somebody. I mean, you've got guys like Trace and Rush, but I think those players, as we know, are best suited to playing on the boundary, right? They're going to play on the outside. They're not going to cover in the slot. I don't think you're going to put them on tight ends, running backs.
Put that picture back up.
Yeah, he got in there.
First of all, that is a serious looking ref. Look at that guy. He's like, he is focused in. He's like, yes.
That's a good thing, though, Brian. He's got to be there. He's watching it. You know, he's looking through the play. He's in a good position because the camera is at an angle, right? So he is right there to be able to make the call. I mean, the one that made the call and Charlie Batch saying it wasn't a catch for Pickens, I almost called bullshit on that one, like in real time. How the hell can you? You know, and Bob Pompiani's just going along with it with the local broadcast. And I'm kind of like, how the hell can you make that determination? The thing I had with Rush here was he plays the ball really well. I was like, get your head around, man. We don't want pass interference because you just never know. You'll get Riveron. Remember Riveron, Al Riveron?
Yes,
That's all we used to talk about. Oh, my goodness. It's just everything went against the Steelers. Tomlin couldn't win challenges. Somebody brought that up statistically somewhere on the X. And they were talking about how, you know, Tomlin kind of been bullied into submission to not challenge plays because he couldn't win when Al Riveron was in the command center for 2 or 3 years.
Yep.
But yeah, Rush. So we'll come back full circle here. So, but just 1 second. When I was at Friday Night Lights, I'm trying to think. Was it one of the line judges? His name was Dwayne. We'll put it that way. We looked him up because they all have numbers. They have unique uniform numbers. It's Dwayne. You know, Duane, and he was cool. He came over so we saw him warming up, and I looked up the name and do the old thing that embarrassed me. The same thing I did Kevin Colbert at a Penguins playoff game. You see people walking out of the club, my cousin's like, "That's Kevin Colbert." I'm like, "No, it's not." And he's like, "Yeah, it is." And it's like, "How else do you know?" "Hey, Kevin." And there's nobody else in the hallway, and it bellows down the hall. He turns around. He's with his wife or whatever. Then you're like, "Oh shit, what do I do next?" Didn't have a follow-up to it. Well, the same thing happens with this referee. He comes over, and it was funny. I don't know if I told the story already, so forgive me if I'm a broken record, but he comes over and we're like, "Yeah, we know our referees. We love our referees." And no, we just have a smartphone. We looked you up your uniform number real quick. But we were asking him, he loved the new kickoff rule. He thought it was pretty cool. He's pounding around. But yeah, these guys were doing the full thing. They were relaxed. They weren't wearing the full uniform. You know, they had shorts on because it's like a practice. So that's their informal gear. But yeah, these guys are always they're in fantastic shape. They're checking the field, even the field that is at the Latrobe Memorial Stadium. They're walking around. They're looking in, making sure the pylons are where they need to be. As they're patting on the field goal post, all the things you wouldn't think of as a normal human being there, just being a fan watching in attendance. We asked him where he was week 1, and he nearly he went to start talking. And he goes, "Well, I can't tell you that." I'm like, "But you do know. You do have your assignments already." So I thought that was intriguing that they already had them, because some of these things go week to week, or they might move the crews, or you don't want conflicts. So the scheduling for them is just as difficult to make sure you don't have the same referees. At most, you might see the same crew twice in a season, just because there aren't enough to go around for 17 games. So I thought that was kind of intriguing. So yeah, the referees... We shit on them all the time, right? But for that one, I'm going to say dude was right there, and he didn't throw a flag on it that I recall. Darius Rush, I think, made a great play. So,
all right. Since you said his name is Dwayne, I'm just telling you that all I can hear is Bruce Willis going, "I'm not the one who just got bleepity bleeped on national TV, Dwayne."
No, and I think of Dwayne, I automatically default to Bob Newhart and Daryl and Daryl.
My brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl.
Yeah, Dwayne, and Dwayne. But anyways, back after the little referee thing that was there. And speaking of the challenge thing, it should be a little less, what do you want to say, apprehension for Tomlin to challenge now, because you don't have to win both of them to get one back. You just have to be right on one of the two to get a third challenge. I think that's going to be helpful this year. I really don't feel that the coaches do it out of spite or the only reason it'd be a tactic is if you have like a 50-50 call and you're going to call a timeout anyway, and you're going to use it like and give your team a blow, right? So so that should be less apprehensive for Mike Tomlin in giving some challenges this year. So before it was just like if you use it, I think there was you use it, you lose it, and then you don't have any more. But if you do get successful on one of the two, now you don't have to be successful on both of it. You don't have to be right all the time. It puts a little more onus on the officiating, but it also helps, I think, the officiating and the teams and makes it more fair and balanced. That's completing my thought. Slot corner. B.D. Bishop does not get out there. He gets dinged up in one of the joint practices. He doesn't play. Now, I know this dude had 5 or 6 years of college, 2-3 different colleges he played for. He's one of these guys with the COVID exceptions. He got one more year of that this year. They just had, what's his name? Nagy, that runs the Senior Bowl, was on NFL Network today. They're going to have the largest class at the Senior Bowl. I think they have a list of up to 600 potential players this time. And that's because they're also bringing in specialists, and they're allowed to have juniors play in the All-Star games now. So there's a lot of considerations going out there. Plus, you got a lot of dudes that are still in their 5th or 6th year eligibility from all the COVID stuff. So this is the last year you're going to see like the Bo Nixes that end up being like the Van Wilders of the world, or and Tommy Boy's another one. A lot of people go to college for 8 years. Yeah, they're doctors and lawyers. So
yeah, I don't think you can call it the Senior Bowl anymore. Then if juniors and seniors can be there, you have to call it the Junior Senior Bowl.
Yeah, I think well, and if you lose sponsorship for Reese's, you just don't want to call it just the Reese's Bowl, because then it could be changed. We know that from Heinz Field. Yes. So, which people do. And
is there a Senior Bowl then? If there's a Junior Senior Bowl, there needs to be a Senior Bowl?
The Senior, the Red Shirt Bowl or something. Yeah. Anyway, B.D. Bishop has a lot of. He's older, he's more mature, he's more experienced than some of the guys that would be undrafted free agents coming out of college, but he's still an undrafted rookie that's out there. Your players that you were trialing, Graylin Arnold got hurt, and then I lost the dude's name again. I was looking for this the other day. It's Thomas Graham Jr., who has played safety or something like that. Nickel corner, it's not concerning for one reason, because we know they might only play a quarter of the game, somewhere between 20 and 30% of the game. Cam Sutton's going to be around for the second half of the year, but these games still count until he returns. So they need to have somebody out there that is credible, that could hold down the fort. And I don't know that they have that yet. That's the concern.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. So I still think they'll add to it. Safety depth. I don't know that there's a concern here. I told you about Watts. I like his depth. But you've got Minka, you got Deshaun Elliott, you got the Monte Casey, and if they play more safety-heavy packages and have those guys on the field, then maybe the nickel corner thing's a moot point.
Yep, I'm not worried there either.
They had Cam Sutton playing some safety in camp. Miles Killebrew, we saw, picked off Mitch Trubisky. That was fun. So Miles Killebrew could get at it if need be, and he's the special teams ace. Any concerns about special teams?
All right. Well, of course we're concerned about the punter, because we're always concerned about the punter. The punter. Wait a minute.
I'm not concerned.
It's muscle
about
memory.
The punter.
I'm sorry. It's muscle memory. I can't not say we're concerned about the punter. For how many years have we been concerned about the punter? But we're not. We're not concerned about the punter.
I am not concerned about the punter either. I am so less concerned about the punter that I went and sought out getting him to sign the kicker ball. The guys anybody who puts their foot on the ball. This guy he's going to be a good one. It's like overlooking Queen.
I am so glad that Bill Burr, retired from comedy to come be our punter. It's just, it's awesome.
I know, dude. I wish I had a photo of him without his helmet on. I know I had one somewhere in the archives here, but I don't have it pulled up or set up here. But yeah, he does look like Bill Burr 100% of the way. I just realized too, as guys cycling through these photos, I didn't go through offensive line depth, but we said we were already concerned just center, but they got a couple of guys that can play guard. I don't know about tackle. It shouldn't be a depth problem unless Fontanu's not healthy. But on the specialists, Boswell misses, a kick. A field goal attempt. It is very un-Boswell-like. And is that just jitters for the preseason? I'm hoping so. It's just one of those things where when everything's going wrong, everything's going to go wrong. And in that game, everything was ugly except for Cameron Johnston.
I will worry about Boz when I need to worry about Boz. I mean, we know the truth, right? It happened with Jeff Reed. It happens with all of them. It happens with all of them. One day, nothing works anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. There's some kind of environmental link to the moon, the phases of the moon, and then the kicker all of a sudden can't kick. He's been kicking. He's been the greatest kicker since ever. And Boz has been awesome. Boz has been awesome. Even when he was hurt, he was awesome. Boz has been awesome. But at some point, whatever it is, whatever witchcraft allows them to do what they do, their deal with the devil ends and they stink.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm not worried about Boz. So I do think the only other spot to be concerned about maybe is your returners. I have not seen Cordell Patterson. I wonder if that's just one of those things where this is a veteran and we know what he could do, and we're not going to show the rest of the league yet what we're going to do. But it's a whole new kickoff rule. I don't know if it was just a camp thing and now they're working on it behind closed doors, unless there's a drone that flies up and then they have to put the wall up like they did at the practice facility. Speaking of which, JJ Watt being down there too was pretty cool. He was down there, I think 1 or 2 days. He was working out with the team and helping coach. And Mike Tomlin even tweeted it out, which was neat. And it's just like, and he said he was going to keep his phone on 1 more year. That's an interesting little blurb that's out there. It's like, I don't know. Like, do we really need JJ Watt in this rotation? It's like, come play with your brother, dude. Just for fun.
Do we need him? No, but it'd be fun. Look,
it would be fun.
Let's put it this way. What if Russell and Justin both stink? Well, if that happens, we stink, right? If we stink and somebody gets hurt, why wouldn't you just just come hang out and play with TJ for, the rest of the year? Why not?
Yeah, I think, I know that'd be fun. I'd be pretty hyped up about it. He might have to barter with Ogunjobi over that number 99 jersey. But yeah, back to kick and punt returners. I have no idea. I just don't think they have. It's not sold on me aside from Patterson, who's not going to return punts. So is it going to be Calvin Austin? Is it going to be Scotty Miller? Is it going to be somebody else, TBD? John Reese Plumlee, another running back. I mean, Godwin Agwabike, who was returning these last year. I was just doing the season recall for that final Ravens game last year. Remember when he laid out of bounds and then touched the kick that was fielded short? That was awesome. But you have all new kick return rules, etc. And I just don't know who's on this roster. It's not like you have like a defined third running back. You have Patterson. That's it. And he's going to be the guy. But for all of these setups so far through the season, you've had 2 guys that have been back there to cover the area in that landing zone. So I am a little bit concerned with the return teams. The coverage teams have been a mixed bag because you have a lot of the dudes that are going to be playing on those teams playing a lot of time in the actual game itself, whereas they won't be when you get to the regular season. So maybe they won't be. Maybe they're working into football shape and they're not there and they're tired in coverage. Maybe that's not as concerning. And I know that Danny Smith does a hell of a job as the special teams coach. So I alleviate some of that concerns. Coaching. This is the intangible we don't talk about enough. How much are you worried about Mike Tomlin as a head coach?
I'm not at all.
Regular season or postseason?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not worried about him even in the postseason. I don't believe coaching has cost us the postseason victories that we've lost. You look back, there's always, you've hit on it a million times. There's always something else going on. It's ultimately the head coach's responsibility. But let's say that finally the stars align and we get to postseason in a healthy state, where we're not dependent on a third string quarterback or a second string running back or a combination thereof, where we aren't missing the best defensive player in the league or something like that. Let's say that we get there. I think, I'm not worried in the least. I'm not even worried in either case. Mike Tomlin gets more out of bad players than anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah, including those quarterbacks he's had the last few years, including just pulling people off the street to play in the secondary, which we saw the year before last against the Buccaneers. He got, look what he got out of Eric Rowe. Look what he got out of Miles Jack. Eventually, you're going to hit the wall. Buffalo, healthier team and mistake free for the most part. Like the Stars still made mistakes. But now let's talk about the others. I don't have a concern about Terrell Austin or the defensive staff. I don't have a concern about Danny Smith. But there's people now that have turned their head in this preseason about Arthur Smith. Was he the right choice? Is this offense going to look any different, etc.? And I think with the play calling, I think when you're not game planning for an opponent and attacking specific weaknesses, they're running plays to see specific things, how they work in a game setting or in a situational setting. I don't think any of this with Arthur Smith has any validity to it. Any of the criticisms that are already coming out where people are worried. I know people are looking ahead to week 1 against the Falcons and they're like, oh man, I don't know. The Steelers, they had this chalked up to a victory already, but now I don't know. I actually heard somebody say that on Steelers Nation Radio, one of the hosts, and I'm like, you had that chalked up already? How can you have that chalked up? Nobody knows who these teams are right now. You're going to look at this in like November and be like, man, I had a lot of these teams wrong. And then some of these teams are going to turn it around and end up making the playoffs. Look where the Steelers were when they lost to the 2-win Patriots, the 2-win Cardinals. They had Mitch Trubisky as their quarterback. And you're like, I wrote this team off. And then they make the playoffs. So you don't know until it's all said and done.
So I talked about muscle memory and being concerned about things. After the last, I don't even know how many years, maybe since Todd Haley, and even the last maybe year or two of Todd Haley, I'm conditioned to be concerned about the offensive coordinator. Until you prove that I don't need to be concerned about the offensive coordinator, I will be concerned about the offensive coordinator.
Yep. I mean, that's fair enough. Until you see it, prove me wrong, right?
Yep.
And overall for the season, are you concerned about the season? I mean, I always get like it's the nervous jitters, the anxiousness, but I think the Steelers, and you talk about Mike Tomlin, I know people will bitch and complain about the no losing seasons thing, but it holds a lot of validity in what he gets out of a lot of these players. If he could finally get a team that's healthy, I do think that the Steelers will be able to run the football. I do think that their offensive line will be improved. It might take some time. I don't know if the quarterback position is going to blow us out of the water, but I do think that like Najee Harris or Jaylen Warren are going to be more than what we have seen in years past. I think the defense is going to be as good or better than in years past. And I think strong defense, just take a look at the Cleveland Browns as a good example. The Browns, you expect more out of their offense, right? They definitely have some pieces there. Probably pieces that are more name brand than what the Steelers have. And then even last season, they carried that whole team with defense. The Steelers largely did the same thing with Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky. And then when you got Rudolph out there that was able to throw the ball around, they had 2 back-to-back 30-point games. I'm not going to say that they're going to put loads of points on the board, but I think the additions of like Elliott and Patrick Queen and a healthy Cam Hayward, and you got Benton in a second year, and Peyton Wilson, Dante Jackson, Joey Porter in a second year. You still got Minka, you still got TJ Watt. This is a really, 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 really good group that I think just too much is being honed in on Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, and they're just ignoring the defense overall. I think the defense is going to be able to shut down probably all of these opponents. They went 5-1 in the AFC North last year with less.
I am not concerned about the defense. I'm just not. I agree. The defense should be a better group than they were last year, and they were good last year. Assuming all stays status quo, right? Injuries throw a monkey wrench into everything. But assuming that people stay healthy, I'm not at all concerned about the defense. I am concerned that the offense may be boring, may not score as many points as we'd like. But the thing that happened last year and the thing that happens the years when the defense carry us is turnovers tend to come our way, right? And that's the thing. You just never know how those balls are going to bounce. That sounds bad too. And you never know the direct. I can remember seasons where we were knocking the balls out. We were, TJ stripping stuff, and we just didn't get them right. Tipping, dropping interceptions. We just weren't getting the turnovers. And when we don't get the turnovers, then the defense being good doesn't always set us up for victory. And that's one of those unknowns. I think the defense is going to be lights out. If they can take the ball away, if they can score, then I'm not worried as much. If it's one of those seasons where the defense is really good statistically, but we're not getting turnovers, I don't know.
Yep. Just for some reference, the offense was 28th in points scored, 25th in yards last season. The defense was 6th for points and 21st in yards. They gave up a lot of yards, but did not relinquish a lot of points. They were 8th in turnovers. The offense was 2nd. I didn't really realize how much the offense gave up the ball. If you're worried about, Wilson protects the football. That's why he's going to be the starter, right? But Fields, maybe not so much, but they were still in all of this. 29th in first downs, where the defense was 8th. So if we think the defense is better and the offense should be better, then you're looking at a better team. I understand you got a gauntlet of a schedule. Thank goodness that part of it is in the second half of the season where they have some time to marinate and work on some things against maybe not so great opponents. And you get a lot of the divisional play. They're not going to get like a cheap loss against somebody in a division in like week 2 because they still hadn't figured out the run game or something. You know what I mean? So that for me, we'll have some more, Brian, me and you will have some time to talk before the first game of the season and look again, like we do against we'll look at the whole schedule, put that up against the AFC North and try and figure it out. But last year we had everybody with winning records, I think, when we did it, and lo and behold, it happened. And we said that isn't likely, but it happened. So we had 13 wins too, but we were off a plus or minus 3 there more than we thought.
We didn't pick those 2 that we should have won.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely true, and that would have skewed things. It just makes you wonder if certain players. I always wonder what happens if Kenny Pickett doesn't get hurt, and do they still make the playoffs? Do they still? There's a lot of what ifs. I'm not going to go into all of that, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and leave a rating and review wherever you're watching or listening to. That's a whole thing like for next season. I think people are probably crapping all over Kenny Pickett for what happened with the Eagles. He had no time to throw at all in that preseason game the other day too. So it was just like everybody's using that to try and justify the trade or the Steelers dumping him, and they just. Who cares? This is preseason. That's all the more I was looking at it. So
this is the way I look at it. Who cares? He's not here anymore.
Well,
I don't care.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one more. Mike Tannenbaum, former NFL general manager, he goes out and says, should the Steelers trade Russell Wilson to the Vikings? Because now JJ McCarthy's out for the season, right? And they got to roll with Sam Darnold. Should they trade Russell Wilson, who may not be tradable, I don't know, to the Vikings, get a draft pick, whatever the hell the Vikings are giving up, a box of peanuts or Cracker Jacks or whatever for Russell Wilson, so then they could start Justin Fields because he's been seeing this and thinking, oh, well, Fields has been in contention and I think he's got more reps, so he's going to be the starter. And then sign Ryan Tannehill to be in this mix, who has had no camp, no preseason. He might know Arthur Smith's lingo and terminology, maybe not the whole installed system, but when you go from Wilson to Fields, at least you might be able to run some semblance of the same offense. But if you go from like Fields to Tannehill, you're probably not going to have much an offense whatsoever. I'm like, what a take this is.
Stop saying these things. Stop.
Please.
Just stop. It makes my head hurt. Stop saying it.
Well, Brian, I'm sorry, but I almost forgot to bring that up. That is probably, I remember Zach wanted to do something like the worst take of the week or something, or the worst take for the show.
There you go.
By far, that's the worst one that I've seen out there. So, folks, thank you for joining us, Sporting Steel City Underground, wherever you may be watching or listening. Once again, thank you to my good pal, Brian E. Roach here for joining us again today. We'll catch you again after the 1 o'clock preseason game. don't think, this one's nationally televised too. So you can catch this on NFL Network, just as a programming note for our 2%ers that are still out there. So it's
What day is
available.
it?
It's Saturday. It is Saturday. I'm sorry. Did I keep saying it? It's a Saturday 1:00, which is, kind of strange, but
I won't get to watch this one either.
Cut downs are a little, you're probably not going to miss anything, to be completely honest. Other than, I actually thought about just going up to Detroit because it's a short trip. I've never been to a game at Ford Field, but then I was thinking there's nobody of interest. Like, I'm going to be snoozing like through the first quarter already. So, and I got other plans. So anyways, folks, once again, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. As we encourage everyone out there to always do as we close out the show, be safe, be good, and we will catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.